Hi, guys. Welcome to this year's annual meeting where we discuss different topics that we want to present in our ballots. The main one we want to talk about tonight is the chance of placing safe centers for children in schools, especially children that are being abused by other people, such as parents, family members, step parents, relatives, friends, even strangers. So, first, I would like to get into what it means to be abused and different people that are abused. So, let's get into it. According to Martin H. Teacher in his Wounds That Time Won't Heal article, he mentions that abused children are becoming more and more common in America. These abused children tend to develop psychiatric problems, and when they are abused early, it develops negative effects of their brain, which means their brain doesn't develop properly as a child, which leads to empty spaces that weren't able to fulfill their full potential. And in children that are a little more older, there are dramatic changes in their personality, like puzzle pieces out of their places, or puzzle pieces that have been changed or mixed shape that don't fit properly anymore, so they don't have the same functions. There's just a lot of different things that can lead on to a child's adult life that they experience. There are also several neurological effects that child abuse has on children and their brain structures, especially them being so young. Majority of the children that are abused are younger than 5 years old, and that's the point where their brain is largely adjusting and changing and settling. Abused and neglected children can also have an effect to their amygdala, which is their part of their brain where they express a lot of emotions, especially positive emotions. That's relatively where it all happens. Many of these children do not get to experience positive situations due to being abused as children, which leads to them having more anxiety. And when they have more anxiety, it can harm their relationships, especially like trust between people. Especially if people are there to help them, they might not feel as they are. And as they get older, they aren't able to perform well in school or at work as adults. They tend to not trust a lot of people. As noticed in this image, a normal brain, you see in the temporal lobes that there is a lot of brain activity and a lot of red and yellow, which means happiness or calm. In the abused image of the brain, there's a lot of dark spots in the temporal lobe, which just shows that they're missing a lot of happiness and brain matter. There are also not a lot of red regions in the brain, which red means happy and positivity. Diagnosing child abuse and finding treatments for it, there's a lot that people can do to diagnose children. According to the Mayo Clinic, they have done researches where they have diagnosed children by just discussing with the children if it's accessible, or the parents if they are willing to. They observe a lot of relationships that children have. If the relationships are more abusive or they don't trust them as much, then you can tell that there is something wrong with the child and it could lead to child abuse. There's also behavioral differences. If the children have more anger outbursts, then there's a sense of not being happy at home, or they're shown that anger is the only way out since they're being abused. They also can perform physical exams where they just observe the body and see if there's any bruising, cuts, indents, just things like that that indicate there's abuse being And there are many treatments that we can have. For example, finding a safe location, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Therapy for both parents and children, which is a good way to see if the parents are willing to better themselves as well as the children. And there's always different ways to cope with abuse, which is finding physical activities to take in, performing in theater arts at school, joining student council, just getting their mind busy so they don't have to focus on everything else. There are a lot of outcomes in child abuse, especially age-wise. 0 to 3-year-olds, there's a 10% chance. 4 to 7, there's a 28. 11 to 8 through 11, there's a 25. And 12 and older, there's a 35.9%, which is the biggest region. Children experience depression in these states. It affects their nervous system, as mentioned by the Child Sexual Abuse Evaluation Outcomes, written by Jessica Smith back in 2002. Many of these children are affected emotionally deeply. There's at larger risk for several disabilities, especially sexual abuse. It's pretty saddening what these children have to go through. There's also a positivity around schools. When children tend to perform better in schools, they tend to stay out of more trouble. When children are physically, emotionally, or sexually abused, it can lead to them being in prison as an early age. They commit more criminal actions. It also leads them to having emotional restraints. They develop PTSD. They also aren't able to have proper social skills, and they just feel as crime is the only way out. So they tend to lean more towards crime. And there's been studies shown that, according to Zan Vinnels back at grouptherapy.org, many of these children tend to not break as much laws if they find the help they need at an early age and if they perform well in school. Therefore, this is where our community help comes in hand. Us as a community can lead to making sure our children have a safe environment to get to. Our children need this for themselves and for their families. So my final proposal is that we find different locations where we can create safe spaces for abused children, preferably in schools, because that's where typically children spend a majority of their day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, even longer if they do after school programs. I would like to designate a classroom in each school for this. And I like to have hired professionals who are like me, professional in our field work, are able to help these children mentally, emotionally, and physically. I just would like to help all these children. They do not deserve what they get. How can you get involved, you may ask? The main thing is donations. Many of us are young teenagers. Many of you guys are teachers, people who do not have children. So you might ask, well, why would I have to help? Well, you can simply help with donations, $5, $10, any amount that can help us transform classrooms in these locations for children. You could also help us collect signatures to get it on a ballot this upcoming year for elections, so we can make it official in all around the state, all around the world, all around the country, just so more people can notice that we are trying to make a change and we are trying to better our nation one step at a time. You can also help advocate for the centers. Some people are against these centers because they feel as if it'd take away from learning opportunities for these children, but it wouldn't. It would just enhance safety for those children who do not have safety in their own homes. And we also would need help with transportation. Many of these children would call us and be like, this and this is happening to me. Is there any way like I can get to this location? And we would want volunteers that would be willing to pick up these children in these situations and bring them to the safe location at any given time of day. And you can also get involved by staying positive. Being positive through these situations can always enforce reassurance to these children. It can help them stay happy, find the light in the dark. And we would also need help finding sponsors. Many of these things do not come free. We would need to find food, we'd need to find bedding stuff, just small things like that in case situations happen where children have to be taken out of their homes because things got way too extreme. We just have to find different resources that we could use for these situations. Why is it important for our community to get involved? Because in the future, it decreases crime levels. Once these abused children become adults, it dignifies a more unified community that we are. It supports people that are in harm, that are being abused. It creates a safer environment all around because there isn't any outlashes of anger, any violent crimes, any just horrible things that we see in the news nowadays. And it also motivates others. There are surrounding states around us, even across the ocean, we have an island. So it's just important that we all come together as a nation, motivate each other to help the question of child abuse. These children deserve a better life, and it is important that we find these resources, such as a safe community in schools for them, where they are happy, healthy, and are not being put in harm's way any longer. Thank you guys for attending tonight's meeting. If you have any further questions, please email me on the email down below. If not, you can stop by Excel Academy and look at the makeshift little safe location I made for our students to get a better understanding of what we want to create for our nation and how we want to help our children. Thank you guys. Have a great night.